the Sparkle Barn. I'm John, and hopefully we won't get interrupted too much by comings and goings outside the barn. Had a few this morning already, but this is the take. Okay, so here's to the first tutorial. Get yourself a coffee. That's good. Okay, if you go to www.sparkol.com, you can sign up for a free 7-day trial and give videoscribe a go and see whether it's something that's going to be useful to you and what you do. We're seeing videoscribe used a lot for smaller businesses who want to explain their product or their service. We're seeing it used by educators. It works really well if you've got a speech or a presentation that you've done and you want to put that online in a very interactive and engaging way. Or maybe like me, you haven't got a face for video and you want some animation. Right, so I'm going to log in here, and the first screen that I see is the home or project screen, and these three examples come with the videoscribe tutorial, and they let you see some of the things that videoscribe can do. Now, as you create more scribes, this project screen will fill up with the various scribes, and you can scroll through them and basically create a whole range of illustrations and examples and tutorials or explainer videos or whatever it is, as I say, that you want to use videoscribe for. So today we're going to create our scribe from scratch. So I'm going to go to create, and we get a nice blank canvas. Now this area here is the canvas right in the center, and it's like an infinite piece of paper. You can place elements on it, whether they're text or images, onto the canvas and lay them out in a way that tells your story. The camera will then move around these elements, and a hand will either draw them or move them in or do different animations depending on what you select and what features are available in the version you're running. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image. So I click on the Add Image icon, and I have a choice of where I bring that image in from. You could either bring it in from your favourites, which are images that you have used before, from the library, which comes with videoscribe, from your local computer, Dropbox, or from a web location. So I'm going to go to the library, and if you're a pro user you get a lot of extra libraries. There's several hundred more images for pro users, but with the trial you get quite a good range here. So I've got things like people, creatures, we've got call outs, this sort of thing. So there's a whole range in there. What I'm going to do is search up here for van, because I want to do a little scribe for a workman. So I'm going to choose, shall I choose this van? Let's go with the 3D one. Okay, use image. Now when I click use image, you'll see here I have add to favorites ticked, which means that it will go into my favorites collection. And if I click use image, I now have that also added to my canvas. So it's put it right in the middle there, and it's given me a time of 30 seconds. So whatever you have selected up here in your canvas, you'll get properties for down in this properties box down the bottom. So I'm going to make that slightly bigger, and maybe I can rotate it a little. Let's have it a little bit more like that. Move it across. Lovely. Now 30 seconds is quite a long time for this image to draw. So I'm going to reduce that right down to about, I don't know, 15 seconds? No, 10 seconds, yeah. Great. Now, often the workflow will be that you'll record a voiceover, or you have a very clear idea of what you want to say first. Maybe record a script, or at very least have a script sort of written out. And then you go to videoscribe and you document or draw out what it is you want to say. The best scribes we've seen have very little text on them and a lot of images. So there's my first image of a van. Now immediately I can click this play button up here, and I get to see how that's going to look. So as you can see, it draws out the van, and that all looks very nice. And even 10 seconds is quite a long time. So I think that's good. Happy with that. Okay, so if I click on the van and then I click to zoom out a little bit, there we go, that's a bit better view to work with. Okay, so I'm now going to add some text onto the side of the van that says looking for a reliable workman or something like that. So let's add that in. Need a reliable Workman. Okay, and then I tick the box and it adds that text for me. So I'm going to drag that. Now I want it to look like it's written on the door, so what I need to do here is add an extra carriage return after the word a, sorry I have young children, and before the word reliable. So I click on here and I get the element menu. Now this element menu lets you play just from this location. You can change the text, you can do things like filters, change the hand that's used, all sorts of advanced options which we'll cover in future tutorials. But for this example I want to click on here, which allows me to replace or edit the text. So I click on that and I put an extra carriage return in here. There we go. Whoops. Reliable Workman. And that's a lot better. Now to fit on the door I'm going to have to make it a little smaller. Move it across. And then I also, if I zoom out again, I can hold that down. We can see that it's not entirely straight, the door, so I need to use the rotation to give it a little bit of rotation, and there we have it. Okay, so if I now click this zoom here, it will fit everything I've got into one view, and I can zoom out a little bit more. There we go. So I now have a van and it says need a reliable workman. So I'm going to reduce the timing on that one slightly to 3 seconds. There we go. Okay, and then let's put a friendly workman on there as well, and then our scene is complete. So let's add in, and I want to look for man, and we should have a nice workman somewhere here. Let's have a look. We could use this guy. Oh, this guy looks good. Let's use him. Brilliant. Now let's make him the same scale as the van. He's probably about that big. Lovely. That looks good to me. Great. So how long is he going to take? 30 seconds is way too much. Let's take him right down to about 5 seconds. There we go. So the total running time is the van being drawn at 10 seconds. We then have this here, which is a half-second pause. Now if I don't want it to pause before it moves on to the next item, I can remove that by clicking on the pause and it will disappear. Or I could add in another one, and each one of these represents half a second. So if I've clicked it twice like that, I now have a second pause. Then it's going to write out need a reliable workman in 3 seconds, pause for half a second, and then it's going to draw the reliable workman in 5 seconds and pause for half a second. And in between each of those is a 1 second transition, which you can change through the advanced settings, but at the moment we'll leave that the same, and that means our total running time here is 23 seconds. So let's click play, and we see the van being drawn, and then it will zoom right into the door, write out our text. Lovely. Zoom out and draw the reliable workman. Fantastic. So that's how easy it is to create a video scribe. Very, very simple. So I'm going to add some music to this. So if I click on the music track button, I get a whole choice of tracks which are sorted in all sorts of different ways. We've categorized them by being either calm or heavy. So if you want something that's really rocking, you need to scroll to the bottom of this and find something in orange. Let's do that. There's several hundred tracks here. You can either use the scroll buttons or you can click and drag. Here we go. What's Tough Kid like? Let's listen to that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's go with that. So I click on the track, it downloads it, and that's now available. So when I click preview play, it uses the music. And I think you'll find as soon as you add music, the whole scribe comes to life. Great. So once you're happy with your scribe and you want to produce it, then you can either send it to YouTube, to Facebook, or you can produce it as a QuickTime movie file or something that you can share or put on your website. So we click render video and it says please save this. So I'm going to call it Workman. Whoops, if I can type right. There we go. Okay. And I then get the render dialog. Now, depending on which version you're running, whether you're on the iPad, the Android, or working on the desktop, you'll get different options here. But on the Desktop Pro version, you can output as a QuickTime movie, a PNG sequence, a JPEG sequence, or an FLV file, which is actually the best format for going to YouTube because it's lossless, and so you have absolutely no loss of quality. So let's do a QuickTime Movie, 87%, quality's fine, 25 frames a second, and then if I change this to 720 high, we get it 1280 wide. It always sticks to a 16:9 aspect ratio, and I click Create Video. So you can add voiceover as well. We'll look at that in a future tutorial. We'll also look at setting camera position so that rather than just zoom into every item, you can lay out scenes. And videoscribe works on this giant canvas, so rather than having set scenes where or slides where you sort of set up different canvases next to one another or create separate pages, in videoscribe you just literally move to another area of the canvas and start drawing items there, and you can use the camera to move between the two. You can also use this to very effectively zoom into things, zoom out of things. So it could be that you draw something over the top of an existing item and it makes it disappear, or it could be that you zoom right into the eye of something and talk about what it is you can see. It could be that you zoom right out and show that actually this is part of a much bigger world. And as I said before, rather than using a lot of text, we found visual metaphor and using visuals to represent what you want to say to be the most effective in terms of creating good scribes. So, need a reliable workman and so on. So to render a video like this, depending on your machine, it will take a couple of minutes, and then what you end up with is a video file that you can use anywhere. Our license is a very open license. You can, once you're a pro user, use the output commercially. You can even resell the output. You can even put the output on stock sites. So the license is very, very free. Once you've created a video, it's yours to do what you want with. The only caveat is that if you are putting on a stock site or reselling, you need to have an active pro account while you're selling the video. Okay, so our video is finished rendering, and I can now publish that to YouTube, Facebook, Dropbox, or if I click here, I can literally just save that video to my desktop. So I can save that as Workman, click Save, and now I have that video available to me on the desktop to use however I want. Okay, so finally, let's just come out of that, save that file, and you'll see that I now have my Workman scribe, and meanwhile you might have noticed an autosave backup was going on, so that while I'm working I don't lose any work, and that autosave backup is there. So hopefully you'll stick around for the next tutorials where we get a bit more interesting. We look at some of the different options, moving things in using a moving hand, setting camera positions. There's an awful lot of stuff to cover going forwards, but hopefully this has provided a base and given you enough information to create a great first scribe. Cut!